Wisconsin is blessed with beautiful lakes and dozens of nature centers throughout the state, like right here at Schlitz Audubon Nature Center in Milwaukee. These places offer formal programs and a chance to interact with the natural world, and we'll visit 2 of them today. In just a few minutes, Emmy Fink tours Olbrich Botanical Gardens in Madison. And then Jeff Kelm concludes his 2-part series on salmon net pens in Racine Harbor. But first, I'll visit the brand new Horicon Marsh Explorium. I'm Dan Small, and it's time once again for Outdoor Wisconsin.
Summer to fall, winter to spring, from Green Bay to where the St. Croix sings, from Kelm Moraine to Superior Shore. Outdoor Wisconsin, outdoor Wisconsin.
Horicon Marsh is one of the largest remaining wetlands in North America, and there's a wonderful new education and visitor center there where you can learn about the history and ecology of the marsh. I toured the Explorium with DNR wildlife educator Elizabeth Hertzman.
So the Explorium is a really unique and interesting way for us to share the story of Horicon Marsh with people. If people are coming here to the marsh, we want to give them a good broad overview of everything that's happened over the years here at Horicon Marsh, the good and the bad, and then ultimately inspire them to get out and have their own adventure here at Horicon.
Well, Liz, that looks like you.
Well, it is me.
Digging in the mud there.
Exactly. It's what we call a life cast. And what she has found is a Clovis point. It's a type of spear point that Native Americans would have used here many years ago. And the reason that's so important for the entire story of the Explorium is because we figure it's something that's been there since the beginning of Horicon Marsh, or almost the beginning. And it really acts as your narrator throughout the entire journey and throughout the entire story of the marsh.
Until he had chipped away my excess, until he had brought me forth a precise, razor-sharp spear point.
So once you've seen her, you'll enter into a life-size glacier. You'll feel the chill in the air and learn a little bit more about the origins of Horicon Marsh, how it was created, how it was formed by the glaciers in the Ice Age that was here 10,000–12,000 years ago.
A gigantic Ice Age glacier scraped and gouged out a depression in the Wisconsin landscape that over time became a shallow marshland basin known today as Horicon Marsh.
So this is where we have our Clovis point, telling you about human history here at Horicon Marsh. And we really get an opportunity to learn about how Native Americans use the resources here at Horicon Marsh in balance, never overexploiting the resources and using them to our advantage as a sustainable way of life.
A long time had passed since my younger days, since I was crafted into a spear point.
So as you enter into the next period of time during Horicon Marsh, this is where we see the first European settlers. So first thing they did to the marsh was put in a dam to create Lake Horicon. The reason they did that was to put in a sawmill and a gristmill. It was progress for the people of Horicon and the surrounding communities. And it was a controversial time. There were some people that really liked having the lake and others that weren't as thrilled. And so because of that, it was just a very short period in time where Lake Horicon was actually here. So here's where we learn a little bit more about the market hunting here at Horicon Marsh, the different types of punt guns that were used, the ammo that was put into those guns, and the reason that a lot of the skies being dark with birds turns into very little birds because of the non-restricted hunting happening here at Horicon Marsh. There was no conservation, so there was no limit on how many ducks you could shoot in a day, in a year, what species. It was all fair game any time of the year. And so you can imagine with that happening, both private hunting clubs and market hunting, the duck population didn't really stand a chance. And so within about 25 years, our duck population here at Horicon Marsh was completely decimated.
The land around me was changing again as big new machines dragged across the earth. It seemed the humans had a new idea for the marsh.
we see that once again Horicon Marsh is changing. At this point in time, remember, there's no wildlife, and so people are trying to figure out what it is that Horicon Marsh can do for them, how we can make the area productive. And so what they decided to do was try and get to the rich and organic peat soil, which was underneath the water of the marsh. They brought in a large dredge, they put it at the very north end of the marsh, and they dug a 14-mile ditch down the entire length of the marsh, and then lateral ditches to drain all of the backwaters. And it worked. They were able to muck farm it. They planted mostly onions, potatoes, and carrots. But the problem they ran into was that peat soil was so wet that it really was not as productive as they were hoping it would be. And so it really now truly was a wasteland for both people and wildlife. Nothing could use the marsh anymore. Since we don't want to end on a bad note, we enter into kind of the restoration of the marsh. And so we had a very great crew of folks led by Louis Curley Radke, and they fought in the Supreme Court for 7 years, trying to get legislation passed to help them raise money to restore Horicon Marsh. And they did eventually get that. It was called the Horicon Marsh Wildlife Refuge Bill. And so without that hard work of those people, we would not have the restored marsh that you see today.
I was discovered by a very friendly woman alongside this marsh 12,000 years later.
So as we enter into present-day Horicon Marsh, we'll talk a little bit about some of the ways and some of the tools that we make sure that we're keeping a healthy habitat out there for wildlife. So this is the airboat, one of our modern day management tools. It's definitely the favorite interactive of just about everybody. So take a seat, grab a headset, and we'll see how you drive.
All right. I'm pretty reckless with a joystick, I'll tell you.
Don't crash us.
Corner coming up here. Have you driven one of these things?
Under a watchful eye of somebody trained.
Yeah, right. I'm doing a 360. How does it do that? That's crazy.
As you exit off the airboat, make sure that you crawl through our muskrat lodge. Muskrat are a really amazing small rodent that we have here on the marsh, but they act as managers for us because they eat cattails. There's also a really nice kids area. You feel like you're being microsized. You're being shrunk down into a small animal or a small macroinvertebrate that might be living in the water of Horicon Marsh. And there's some fun games for you to play as far as learning about the adaptations that birds have with their beaks and matching it to their proper food source, and also matching habitat game. So it's a fun opportunity to learn a little bit about some of the different ecosystems and habitats and animals that we have here in Horicon Marsh. And it's really important to remember that the marsh that you see today is completely different than what it would have been 200 years ago. But it's still an amazing resource, an amazing ecosystem that wildlife can use, that people can use, and that we nowadays have a very heavy hand as far as how we manage the marsh and how we take care of it so that people like you can come out and enjoy those natural resources we have in our backyard. So this is where you get to see your picture on the airboat. So you can touch the screen, you can find your photo, and then
right there.
You can send it to yourself. It will actually email right to you.
Well, Liz, that was great.
Well, thanks for coming and exploring the Explorium with us.
Well, thank you. But after this virtual tour, I'm ready for a real tour.
We hope you have a good adventure out on Horicon Marsh.
Horicon Marsh is a wild natural ecosystem, and there's some wild natural things blooming here at Schlitz Audubon Nature Center too, like this winter aconite. Speaking of blooming, there's a lot going on at Olbrich Botanical Gardens in Madison. So let's join Emmy Fink there for a tour.
Olbrich Botanical Gardens dates all the way back to 1921 when Michael B. Olbrich purchased the 3,500 feet of shoreline along Lake Monona. He always envisioned a botanical garden on this site, and he wanted to create a place of beauty for the East Side residents, as this was a largely industrial area back then. And so then in 1952, the first garden was built, which is the Sunken Garden, and it's more of a formal garden, and it's really a four-season garden. There's spring bulbs and flowering shrubs, and then it has interest all the way into the winter. We have many different types of gardens here. You'll see the perennial garden, the rose garden, different types of water features, lots of annual plantings and containers, and we also have a couple of really sustainable gardens that are gaining popularity here and elsewhere, which are gravel gardens and meadow gardens.
I'm joined with Jeff Epping here at Olbrich Gardens. Now, we're going to talk about gravel gardens, and it's a really great option for people who are maybe looking to do some low maintenance gardening or maybe first timers, right?
Yes, absolutely. The whole idea behind the gravel garden is that you set it up for low maintenance, and how that happens is you plant in 4 to 5 inches of a washed gravel. That makes it very difficult for weed seeds to get established in between the plants that you put in. So all the work is up front, getting the gravel in place and all that, planted, and then we're using drought-tolerant perennials that thrive in these dry conditions. And you can make it look like any type of garden you want. You can have it look naturalistic like a prairie, you can have it look like an English border, whatever you want to do. But the whole idea is to make it low maintenance by using this gravel as a mulch in between the plants.
Now, is it hard to find those drought-tolerant perennials that can thrive in these situations?
It's actually not that bad because, you know, there's dry prairies that are, you know, native in the state of Wisconsin and the Midwest, and there's plants adapted to those dry conditions from all over the world. So, no, the palette's pretty big, but you got to make sure you know what you're looking for and select those plants. And once you have them in place and get them in, you know, watered through the first season, because you know, they're surrounded by gravel, so they got to get rooted down into that soil below. Once they do, then they're good to go.
And really, you could put this in any environment. I've seen a lot of people between the road and their sidewalk, just a little bit of space. They make a beautiful gravel garden, and it's you also don't have to mow it, which is a big plus.
Exactly. The biggest chore is in the spring. You got to clean them up really, really well. You got to get all the debris out because you don't want any organic matter building up in that gravel, because that turns into a soil of sorts where seeds then could germinate and grow. But you're right, it's great in urban conditions. Median strips, little spaces between a sidewalk and a building, which are often very harsh environments. But these types of plants in this system works perfect for that.
So this is another one of the most beautiful gardens here at Olbrich Gardens, and this is a meadow garden. Why did you decide to make such a beautiful, big green space?
Well, we're trying to give people an alternative to the traditional Kentucky bluegrass lawn, which is, you know, one of the most energy consumptive parts of anyone's garden. You know, when you think about all the water, fertilizer, mowing, some gasoline that goes into it, pesticides, all those things, where this is a much more sustainable, environmentally friendly option to that.
And when you think about meadows, you really just think organic and very natural, and this is exactly what this is. I mean, you said there's been bulbs up for a couple of months now.
Right. The first bulbs that come up are in about mid-March, snowdrops, which literally come up when there's still snow on the ground oftentimes. So, and then there's species tulips and daffodils. Right now, these beautiful camassia are in bloom. And a little earlier we saw a hummingbird flitting around here and there. So it's a garden that's alive, and a lot of insects and animals can live in this, where a bluegrass lawn is just kind of a desert in a way.
Sure. Now, a lot less maintenance for people too if they're thinking about possibly doing this in their space, because that's one thing about Olbrich Gardens. It is inspiring to so many people. They come here and they take those ideas and they say, how can we do that at our house?
Right, and the biggest thing is the mowing. I mean, we only mow this twice a season. We mow it in the fall short, so when the bulbs come up in spring, they can be seen without, you know, being covered up by all the foliage. And then after it goes to seed, about mid-June, we mow it again, just to kind of tidy it up a little bit, and then it's good to go. So the grass comes up, kind of falls over. It's just emerald green, sort of wavy carpet through the whole area, and it's beautiful.
And this isn't the only meadow garden that's here at Olbrich.
No, we have about four different types of meadows that we have here. Some are more naturalistic, some are a little more formal, but they're all beautiful and they make great sense as a gardener. I mean, we all want to spend more time and enjoy our gardens, not be working in them all the time. And this is a great way to do that.
Olbrich is 16 acres of outdoor display gardens, and then we also have the indoor Tropical Bowls Conservatory. That's 10,000 square feet, and it's a relatively small garden for its size for a botanic garden, but there's really something around every corner. You can wander for hours and you'll find something new every time. every time you visit, you're going to find something new. So it's manageable in a couple hours or a day because it's pretty small, but there's just so much to see around every turn. There's always something going on here. We have special events year-round, many of which are fundraisers for the gardens, so every dollar goes back to support the gardens. There's events for kids, there's events for adults, really all different types of interests. We also have classes year-round, so whether you're a beginning gardener or you're an expert, you'll find some topic that is relevant to what kind of gardening you want to do. And then we also have yoga in the gardens year-round, and there's concerts. We have a gift shop, and we have a gardening library right here too. So there's always something going on. You don't have to just come and walk around. You can really participate in many of our events and classes too. Maintenance is quite a feat. We have about 600 volunteers who help us year-round. Some of those volunteers help in outdoor gardens on gardening crews with horticulturists. So there's a huge team of volunteers that really supports what our staff does, and we wouldn't be able to do it without them. It is amazing to hear the stories about people and their experiences here. A lot of times you'll hear that people came here for a wedding, and maybe that's their only experience here, but it was for a wedding, and what a beautiful setting for such a special day for people. Myself, I remember coming here when I was younger with my family, and so to get to work here now and then to know that this place is going to be around in the future for generations to come is really special too.
From urban gardens, let's turn now to urban wildlife. Here's Emmy Fink again with some facts about critters that might wander through your backyard.
Today's Know Wisconsin takes a look at urban wildlife. Urban areas can be havens for many wildlife species, such as deer, cottontail rabbits, Canada geese, and raccoons. Also common in urban areas, but rarely seen, are red fox and skunks. Seeing wildlife can be a fun experience. However, there are some important recommendations when it comes to feeding these animals. The Wisconsin DNR reminds us that feeding wild animals causes them to become accustomed to people, which can pose a big safety risk and endanger the animal. Poor quality diets of corn and hay can kill some deer. Chocolate can kill members of the dog family, like coyotes and foxes, and bread actually provides little nutrition for ducks, geese, and other birds. An animal's best bet for a healthy, well-rounded diet is for them to feast on nature's food. Russ Bachman of Waukesha County sent us this photo of a muskrat that he saw while kayaking on the Oconomowoc River last winter. Thanks for that picture, Russ. We would love to showcase your favorite outdoor moment of wildlife or nature's beauty. So email us your photo to knowwisconsin@gmail.com. Please include your name, the city where you live, and the county in which the photo was taken. So get outdoors and get to know Wisconsin.
Thanks, Emmy. Another good example of an environment where man has enhanced nature is Lake Michigan. Salmon are not native to the lake, but they now thrive here, thanks to stocking and some natural reproduction. Last week, Jeff Kelm learned how the Racine chapter of Salmon Unlimited worked with Gateway Community College to construct net pens to help young salmon make the transition from the hatchery to life in Lake Michigan. Jeff concludes this segment now with a look at the pens at work.
"40 years ago, the club had done this. This isn't something new, but then it was stopped, and now up until last year when the law changed, it allows us to feed fish in the water.
7.90.
By holding the fish in the pen, we feel that we're going to let the fish imprint better. They've had a chance to sit in the river in the pens, so they're already acclimated to the water temperatures and the food source available. When the 4 years comes, they come up and they want to spawn, and that's when we hope there'll be a better return all around the rivers and the harbor. It's a whole club that's doing this. Our Salmon Unlimited feels that this would be a definite benefit for us, and that's why we're doing it in the river in Racine.
How many fish are in each pen?
Total of 25,000 fish, and divided between the two. These are the fish we're feeding. and you can see their marks and the little stripes on the side. And we've been feeding them pretty long. We can't keep them out of the water too long because they'll eat up the oxygen, but they're very active. Now in 4 years, those little guys are going to be
There'll be 15 pounders at least.
15 to 20, 25, maybe 30.
Maybe
hopefully.
30 pounders.
Very good.
Do you mark any of them? You don't have them. You're not using a marker or nothing, right, to know which ones you got?
Sometimes we whistle at them when they're feeding. We do the feedings 3 times a day. At the 7 o'clock, we also take the oxygen and temperature readings, and then we feed the fish, which is 1 cup per pen on a stick, and we just kind of sprinkle the feed over the pen, and the fish will come up and get active. And then noon, we've been just feeding the fish, and then at 5 o'clock, again, we take the oxygen and temperature reading, and then after that, we feed the fish.
Bob, is this your favorite part of the day?
Yeah, actually it is.
So you're in charge of coming down here each and every day at noon for the noon feedings?
Correct, yes.
And what's the process? Walk me through that, what you got to do each day.
Well, the first thing we do is check to make sure that all the fish are still alive. Then we feed each pen. They get like 3 pounds a day, divided up between the 3 feedings. Kind of nice to see how active they are.
Yeah, how fast they come up for it.
Yeah, we try and spread it out so you don't want to put it in too fast so it goes through the bottom.
Are you hoping they remember your face?
Right.
In 4 years, yeah?
Yeah, Angie was using a whistle trying to get them used to it.
That's what he was saying.
We're going to go take the dissolved oxygen reading and the temperature, and we'll read that, and I'll show you what you're supposed to do with the probe, and you'll be able to get that. I'll let you get ahead of me there, and I'll follow right behind you.
So this probe will measure the temperature and oxygen off of this.
Right. Right now we've got 69.2 degrees on the air temperature.
Okay.
So now stick that over the pen in the hole there.
All right.
And get it down. We'll get it all the way down. Right now we're getting the temperature. See, the temperature is dropping, 60, 59. So actually our temperature is warmed up a little bit. And then what we do is we go back, hold it, and then go. And we just need to get you out a little bit so it's not on the edge of the net. There you go. We've had the fish in the pen for 9 days. We put them in last Tuesday, and this is Thursday. And so they've been doing real good so far up until today. Well, today we had a problem with the dissolved oxygen got low. It was below 7, so it was a critical area, and that's why we were concerned. So we ended up adding the pumps and trying to add oxygen to the water. Right now our oxygen has come up to 7.4, and we've got 59.5 on the temperature.
So that's good. I mean,
right, that we're above 7.
Okay.
Because 7 is an action level for us.
Okay. What happens if it drops, into a critical level? What do you guys, besides putting the pumps up, what else do you?
If it got to 5, we'd have to release the fish immediately.
Okay.
That's what she said from the DNR. And if in 7, we're all right. It depends on how well it's coming up for us today. So just by adding the water, so that's helped us quite a bit.
So what would be one of the reasons the oxygen level would drop? I mean, it just has.
Just
I mean, it's
the water's not movement.
Okay.
No movement. We're supposed to have our winds are picking up today, and so that might help get a movement going. And our temperature, we start to get concerned when the water temperature goes from 60 to 65. That would be a concern. Right now we're below 60, so we're at 59, and we've got 7.5. So it changes, and that's why we had the movement. I'm going to call it 7.47 and 59.2, and so that's good, and that's how that works. We'll kind of get an idea on the other pen, but the plan was to hold them for 2 weeks, we're into 9 days right now. And then by holding them to term, the last 2 days, which will be a Monday and a Tuesday, we'll not feed them at all. So this way they're going to be hungry and ready and on the move. And I guess the DNR's feeling is they'll be less stressed and ready to go and move on. I really like to thank the marina, because the Pew Marina here has been wonderful for us. They let us come in for the feedings before hours and after hours, you know, whatever we need. But by having good partners in Racine, and then Gateway that did the building of the pens, so it isn't just Salmon Unlimited's effort, it's been a community effort.
By fall, those salmon will reach catchable size, and in 4 years, some of them will weigh as much as 30 pounds. For more information on this week's features, log on to mptv.org and click on Outdoor Wisconsin, or visit the Outdoor Wisconsin Facebook page. Well, next time I'll fish for some of those Lake Michigan salmon with Dumper Dan Sport Fishing Charters of Sheboygan. Jeff Kelm checks out waterfalls in Marinette County, and we'll look at rooftop gardens in Milwaukee. I'm Dan Small. Get outdoors this month and join us again next time for Outdoor Wisconsin.
Free yourself like an eagle in the air. Feed yourself like a bear in the blackberry, like a hawk. Perch and stare. Outdoor Wisconsin. When the work in life is way too much, you're in too deep, way out of touch. Lace up your boots, get out of town. Walk in the wild or sit down and listen. Listen to the sounds of the critters of the night, to the wind and the leaves and the little river run. Coyote brother howling in the moonlight. Outdoor Wisconsin. Hike, fish, hunt, camp, sail, canoe. Ski, photograph, laugh, do what you want to. Stick your nose where the wild rose grows. Outdoor Wisconsin. Outdoor Wisconsin.